What's up, everybody? This is Darrell from the Sounds Heavy podcast, and I wanted to drop a little line before the show gets started just to give you a heads up. We had Jeffery and Jeremy from beyondthegravemusic.com on the show to talk to us about reviewing music, talked about a bunch of bands, talked about their favorite bands, favorite reviews, all this stuff. Unfortunately, due to elements out of our control and internet issues galore, we lost the audio for 90% of Jeffrey's track. Jeffrey's the founder and owner of beyondthegravemusic.com. We had a great conversation with these guys, so it's going to sound a little weird. We had to edit it up to where, unfortunately, you're going to get a whole lot of me talking and not a whole lot of the guys, at least for the beginning of the show, up until about the halfway point. Jeremy, one of the writers from Beyond the Grave Music, he carried the majority of the conversation on what's left in the audio. So unfortunately, we had to cut a lot of that out because it was just not usable. So we will have these guys back on in the future so that we can get the full, great conversation that we had. But I wanted to get on here real quick just to let you know that we did have a good time. We had a great conversation. There's a lot that you can learn from this episode. So just wanted to put a little disclaimer out there, let you check it out. With that being said, on to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sounds Heavy podcast. I'm your host, Darrell, and with me I got Trey. And this week we are joined by two very special guests. Now, what we've been doing is we've been interviewing bands, and we've been kind of talking about the bands and their latest releases and things they're working on. We had our good friend Daniel from Ark of the Covenant come on, and we talked about like tours and things that he had done in the past or what have you. We had our drummer and fellow podcaster Luis come on and talk about his time with Sire. Geez, I did it wrong again. With Sire, and we talked about their upcoming album and, of course, the upcoming Ninjaloot album. So this week we're going to change gears a little bit. Now we have invited on two members from the review website Beyond the Grave. So Jeffery and Jeremy, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Awesome. So, basically what we wanted to do tonight was to kind of grab a different perspective of the quote unquote music industry, right? So we've been talking about things from the point of view of I don't know if you want to say washed up, has-beens, maybe never was, but our perspective as, a band, a local band, a regional band that traveled and did everything on their own and grinded really hard to get recognition, to get shows, to get people to listen to our music. We've had on some brand new bands that were here in the studio, chilling with us and writing and recording music. We've talked to bands that have been established, and we've gotten their perspective of being on a label and touring and stuff. So now what we want to do is grab just some people on the, I don't know if you really want to call it press side, but like the side of things to where you guys review the final product and you guys listen and kind of take in what the bands are doing. Is that first thing we want to do is maybe get the audience kind of familiar with you guys. So Beyond the Grave is the name of the website. The way I found you guys is actually there was a comment. Someone was talking about Gideon, I believe. And they were like, it's in one of these Christian metal hardcore Facebook groups. And somebody said something about Gideon. And I saw a response on there that said, hey, these guys are no longer a quote Christian band. And I saw it was from Beyond the Grave. I was like, oh, who are these guys? Is this the band or is this because that'd be a really cool band name. I was like, or what is this? So I clicked on it. It took me to your Facebook page. And then I went to your website, checked it all out. Got a very clean, nice looking website, by the way.
Jeffrey designs everything.
Very cool. So very nice. So, I started looking through everything. I was like, oh man. So I reached out to see if you guys would come on here and talk about music with us, talk about bands, talk about all kinds of stuff. We've been doing this, Trey, now, how long have we been playing music all together? Not just Ninjaloot, but all together. 15 years?
Yeah, something like that, around 2005, 2006.
So we've been playing music. We've done Ninjaloot. We've done various other spinoff bands, rock bands, rap rock projects. We've done worship bands. We've done, played for all over the place. Done all kinds of stuff.
Hey, where can I hear that rap rock stuff?
Oh, I'll send you a link.
Nice.
But so we've got, we've had our hand in a lot of things, but like there's one thing, we've met tons of younger bands, and I've got a few bands I talk to now that I don't want to say I'm mentoring them because that seems like arrogant and almost like I did something. But I'm just like, hey, these are some of the things that kind of help you get started. Maybe these are some of the things that I can help you with, blah, blah, whatever. And one of the questions I struggle to answer is like, what gets people to notice you? How do you get on people's radars? So I kind of wanted to extend that to you two and maybe get both of your perspectives on it. But like, what gets a band on your radar, whether it be Beyond the Grave for a full review or just as an individual? Like, what gets your attention?
Grab Jeffrey's attention and he'll put it everywhere.
Okay.
For the bands, I think for the most part, it's about getting their stuff out there in every way possible. Like, there's so many different social media things now. There's a band that I've been trying to follow. I think Jeffrey just linked me to their Facebook account, World Divided. For some reason, for a while, he was just on Instagram. Now, for somebody like me who hates all of the social media and wants to have it down to as little as possible, like limiting yourself to one particular one is going to be a huge drawback. So, I mean, really, it's about getting on every single one and just pushing yourself out there and always keeping your name out there.
All right. Trey, what were you about to say?
What I was going to ask is, like, when you're checking out all these new bands and these guys that just pop up out of nowhere, like, is there something about the music that you look for that like makes a band stand out? I mean, I guess what I'm asking, like, if you go to listen to a track or you watch a video or something, is there something about a band that'll like immediately catch your attention and make you go, yeah, I really want to listen to these guys. I really want to try and push these guys.
It's not necessarily a first impact for me. Like, I really want to enjoy as much as I can, so I'll come back to something 3 or 4 times. I guess, I don't know, if the production's got to be decent. And I'm a vocals guy. If the vocals are terrible, I won't keep trying. But Jeffrey's determined to get me into black metal, so I don't know.
Do you have any favorite vocalists? I mean, saying you're a vocal guy, you know.
That's a tough call. I didn't. I think Todd from With Honor from back in the day. Mike from Convictions right now is doing great stuff.
Oh yeah.
Even their clean vocalist, if you listen to his side project, the one I just mentioned, World Divided, he's got an insane range and can do just about everything. So
Heck yeah. I gotta say, I guess to add insight for me, there's so, like, right now we have the ability to listen to music on so many different avenues and platforms.
yeah.
So like you get bombarded with so much stuff, right? And it's really got to stand out for me. Like I need something that's like does something different. Something that's not necessarily the samey. And I don't mean like hitting all the metalcore or beat down tropes. You know, it's just something that like, because like I'll give you an example. There's a band. I'm not gonna name their name. Hopefully we'll have them on the show soon. And they just released a new single, and the production quality is good. Musically, everything is clicking and sounds good. And then like the last 30 seconds of the song, they hit all of the hardcore, metalcore beatdown tropes. It's like, let's do the squeal or the bark or the bleh, and then it's like, let's do the breakdown, let's do the slow breakdown, let's do the obnoxiously slow breakdown. And like, I like all that stuff, but I like that stuff when it's intentional, you know? Like, I like when we write our music, I try to have, from a musician standpoint, something to latch onto for every song. Like, I don't want things to be too samey. Not saying that we haven't put stuff out that was kind of samey. Like, I've listened back to our stuff and be like, man, I really wish I would have done something different. But like, you know, especially in some of our EPs that we've released, there's been like that one thing that's like, oh, I did this different, you know, so that like there's something to walk away with. And I think back to like new metal bands, like use an example like Korn and Limp Bizkit and Stained and some of those bands that really kicked that genre into high gear. Like, they would have these riffs. It would be like one little piece of a riff or one something. Or even if you go back to like 80s metal and things like that, there's like your AC/DC and bands like that. Like, there was like that riff that like it stuck out, you know? And like maybe the rest of the song didn't really do much, but there was that one piece. Or even like thinking about Ozzy or like Iron Man, you know, the very beginning of that song. It's just like, to me, modern metal and Christian metal in particular has really gotten to a point where things are so samey, and then now it's like almost like a race to throw in all the tropes. It's like, oh wait, we are a metalcore band, so we got to do the X, the Y, the Z, and dot all the I's, cross your T's, and all that stuff. And so I really like for something to jump off the page and be like, oh wow, this is a little different than everything else.
You know what? I hate to say it, but one of the things that always grabs me, and probably because I'm a vocals guy, is the guest appearances.
There you go.
And, you know, I was just thinking about it as you're talking about it. One of the things that I think we miss so much with you know, listening to everything online through Bandcamp or Spotify or whatever, you miss the album art.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember the days of walking into a CD store and flipping through and seeing that one crazy cover and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's awesome. I got to buy this. No idea what it was.
Yep, I believe that's how I discovered Living Sacrifice.
Well,
I think it was the hammering process. I think I saw the album art and I was like, I don't know what that is, but the hammering process sounds cool.
Yeah, there might be a few mortification in my collection that were only there because of that cover art.
Yeah, when I first started listening to heavy music, it was like nothing but Christian heavy music. And so the weird thing was, like, let's say a band put out an album with kind of a risque cover or something that was just a little too like too edgy. I'd go into like the Christian bookstore or like Lifeway or something like that looking for these CDs, and they'd always have them like blacked out. You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't even see the cover art when it was something that was kind of crazy, you know? Like I remember a couple years ago, a band called The Showdown put out an album with it was like a bodybuilder on the front that had a bunch of like arrows and stuff in him. And like that's one of the ones that got blacked out in the Christian bookstores. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's like, oh, there's a dude with a bunch of arrows in it. And it's like, that's just a really freaking cool album cover, you know? So.
Heck yeah. I love the freaking Showdown, man. God, that's one of my favorite bands. Love those guys. You know, so that when their first album came out, it was very like thrash metal. And then they had that one song at the end. God, I can't remember the name of it, but they like broke down and started singing and got very worshipy. And like, that was pretty cool. And I was like, man, I like these guys. But one of the things that resonated with me with the Showdown on that album was how many like pinch harmonics they would do. And as a guitar player, it's kind of like a nervous tick. And it's also like I reset my hands to get back into position on the riff with a pinch harmonic. So like for my style of writing, I'd be like, and I'd hit to a point where I like, okay, I need to slide back up and get back into position to play the next riff. So I would do like a little pinch harmonic off the string, and it almost put me in a natural flow to get back into position to play. And one of the things I loved about those guys is they just pinched harmonics everywhere. It was awesome. And so I liked their stuff, but I wasn't like in love with them until that particular album Trey's talking about came out. And when that came out and they kind of got a little heavier, they got a little more like depth to their vocals. It wasn't so high pitch and scratchy. The production quality obviously was through the roof. It was awesome. And then they added that Southern flair, to their music. It just was to me, that album and then the Blood and the Gears album, those are two of the best albums out. I just freaking love those albums. I went through a little stick there where it was like Southern influence in metal was just the coolest thing. I got pretty big into Maylene. I thought they did a pretty rad job with that stuff. But man, I think that Showdown did it the best. So, but I guess that kind of brings us to probably one of the most important questions I'm going to ask you guys tonight. So, what's better, solos or breakdowns?
Yeah, you see, you got introduced it through Dragon Force, and man, I grew up with like glam metal, and I can't deal with solos. Like if they're there, fine. But, like, just beat me over the head and give me that breakdown. Like, just hammer it home as hard as you can. That's what I want.
Heck yeah, man.
Breakdowns are my candy, bro. Like I remember, and I'll go back, I'm saying, to like when I first started getting into the heavy music, and I thought it was the wildest thing that, because I got introduced to metal with Metallica, right? And they don't do a lot of like crazy breakdowns and stuff like that, but I had never heard like such aggressive, loud guitars and stuff. And so from there, I kind of moved into like bands like POD, right? And Project 86 and some of these guys. And like they were heavy. But then I remember the first time I ever heard somebody scream on an album. And it was life changing, right? And so I can't remember, because both of these bands were introduced to me at the exact same time. But Under Oath, like their very first album, and then Living Sacrifice. And hearing the contrast between like, because back when Dallas was the vocalist for Under Oath, and they had like just mainly that really high pitched screaming, I thought that was so cool. And then you had somebody like Bruce from Living Sacrifice who had those really low vocals, and like I thought it was wild, right? But then you listen to both those albums, and there's like these moments where they'll build up and then break it down, and that was almost as life changing as hearing the screaming. Because I didn't know you could do that in music either. And so ever since then, it's just, I've been addicted. Any band that throws out an awesome breakdown, it's hard for me not to listen. Very hard.
Yeah. My love of it's a little self-serving too, though. Like if you're at a show, what do you do during a solo?
You stand there and give them the spirit fingers.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite the same as, somebody yelling go and then dropping into the breakdown and watching that pit explode.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's why we wrote so many breakdowns in our music over the years. Because we wrote our music to watch people dance and then watch people throw down.
Yep.
It was series of 2-steps and breakdowns. And it's like, oh, what do we do now? Oh, I mean, breakdown, duh.
Well, and it's always fun because, like, no matter who you are in the band, when you're playing a breakdown, you can go into these full body headbangs, right? Everybody from the drummer to the guitarist to the vocalist, like whoever. And that's like the most fun you have on stage, is when you're just trying to break your neck headbanging so hard.
Trying to give yourself multiple concussion syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I might have gotten one of those at a Plea for Purging concert.
There you go. So funny story about Plea for Purging, right? I was not a huge fan of theirs. Like I liked them, but I didn't love their music. It was the production was a little too focused on the highs, and their mids and lows musically felt very underwhelming. So like they would have all the but then the it just wasn't it wasn't heavy, right? It wasn't thick enough for me. But I absolutely loved their music videos because they're so freaking funny, right? And they had that one little they had that one video where he had the tape in his hand and it said doo-doo jams. And it was like it was their music. But on the little tape, the cassette tape he held up, it was like on a little sticker and it was handwritten. It said doo-doo jams. I died, man. I thought that was so funny. Those guys are hilarious.
It took me a while to really appreciate it. The first couple times I saw the videos, I'm like, this is stupid. This is the dumbest thing ever. But when I clicked, it was like, okay, no, the juxtaposition of like the crazy ridiculous with the heaviness and the heaviness of their tone and all of their lyrics, it was just like, okay, there's something bizarre going on here that I need to really look at.
The thing I liked about them was that they were funny, and yet their music was still serious.
Yeah.
And it just worked so well together. And it was one of those things that even though that was an avenue we didn't pursue, like off stage and off, you know what I'm saying, out from in front of everybody, our band was a bunch of goofballs. Like we did some of the silliest and we were obviously a Christian metal band. And unlike some of the Christian metal bands, we weren't a party band. We weren't a drinking band. We were just like a bunch of dudes hanging out, traveling everywhere we could go play music. And so like our time spent in hotels and places like that were like wedgie wars and, you know, setting our farts on fire, you know, like we were doing ridiculous stuff like that. And I'd watch those videos and I'm like, that's us. Like, we need to do that. Like, we need to just take all this dumb crap that we do off stage and then put it on camera. And it's gold. It would work. But we never did it. So, all right. So, I guess as a follow-up to that, you know, who has the best breakdown? Like, somebody says right now, gun to head, what's the best breakdown? Who pops in your head?
There's this genre of music that I kind of describe as like biker metal, where it's a lot of the, you know, it's just a lot of real constant, like, I don't know, just Motorhead kind of riffs and stuff like that. And I thought that the newer Fit for a King album had a lot of stuff like that in it, at least the first time I listened through it. But I thought up until their most recent album, like every single album that they wrote just got heavier and heavier and heavier. And then you get to Death Grip, and it's just like, man, it was so good, just all the way through it. There was nothing bad about that album at all.
All right, so then who's got the? Well, hang on, Jeffrey, you threw that one out. What about you, Jeremy?
I mean, I'd probably say Alive by Wage War. That would be my favorite. But I mean, we're going to talk overall band, it has to be Impending Doom. I mean, they've got a couple songs that are basically just one long breakdown the entire song. Like,
yep.
Well, which one of those albums is your favorite? Just out of curiosity.
Impending Doom?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Anything after There Will Be Violence.
Okay.
Didn't care for that album, but everything afterwards has been awesome.
See, that's what I was going to say was one of my favorite breakdowns of all time was the There Will Be Violence breakdown. Like, it was a nice little build up, and then the break into There Will Be Violence, and then just the choppy, oh, man, that was a good one. That was a real good one. All right, and then I guess who has the best solos?
There's a best solo?
I mean, earlier you were going on and on about how solos are your favorite. You know?
I'm solidly with Jeremy. Like, I don't think solos are great at all.
I mean, I'll put out Living Sacrifice. I mean, when Rocky started introing them back into the band, I was okay with it. They surrounded it with enough other stuff that, you know, when he popped in with it, I could handle it. Yeah.
I'm not a huge solo fan. You know, like I like if the solo tells a story. If you're just hitting a bunch of notes to show everybody that you can hit a bunch of notes, like that just doesn't work for me. And I feel like 90% of solos are just that. It's like, ooh, look what I can do. Or like bands that just run leads the whole time because their guy can run leads the whole time. But I got to say, War of Ages has always handled their solos and their leads very, very well. I'm a big fan of theirs, and I really like the way they do it. And they're one of those great bands that just constantly puts out albums. Like I feel like every time I turn around, it's like, oh, there's another War of Ages album. Oh, and it's good.
And it's never the same. Like there's always progression from one album to the next.
So I've really caught on to them on Pride of the Wicked. And they've got some very memorable riffs in there. So I really, really dug that album. And Eternal was amazing. So not that they're not all great, but those two in particular, just without looking at it, those two really, really jive with me.
And there you go, coming back to the album cover thing I was talking about. Like those guys have branded themselves so very well. Like a War of Ages album cover when you see it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
We're not talking Iron Maiden.
Demon Hunter. I was about to say Demon Hunter. Yeah, they really cemented their logo and everything they do.
I know. I listened to that Labeled podcast, this like the Tooth and Nail Records podcast or whatever. And I remember Ryan Clark getting on there, and he said that the logo was actually a thing before the band was a thing. Like they slapped that logo on a T-shirt and tried to sell it to see if the image would get any traction. And then the band formed, and then they started recording stuff.
Yeah, I was at Cornerstone in 2002. I think it was the year before they really kicked off, and they were handing out a die cut sticker of that logo, and we all had it. Like we had no idea what it was, but it was the coolest looking thing we'd ever seen. And I think there were some of the other Solid State bands that were. I remember a couple of guys seeing that I had the sticker, and they were just looking at it like, yeah, it would figure those guys have really nice stickers. So it's pretty funny.
I think I discovered those guys on a sampler, maybe. I think Not Ready to Die was the first song I heard by them.
Yeah, I think that was the Solid State the third one.
Yeah, Solid State Volume 3.
Volume 4.
There.
Was it 4? Which
Volume
4
was the first. Volume 4 was the first one that came out with a DVD to go alongside it, and so they had the music video for that. What was this? I can't remember the song. It was like the first track off that first album.
Or is it Undying? Is it Undying or Not Dying? Not Ready to Die, and then Undying. That's what it was. That was some good stuff. Yeah, the first one I got was Volume 3. So, and that one had Through the Black by Demon Hunter. So that's how I discovered them. That was the one that had Spy Hunter as like the first song on the thing or whatever. It had Bloodwork by Living Sacrifice on it. So that was a good sample. Loaded with good stuff. Matter of fact, I think that one, let me look it up. I think Ludacris was on, I think Light Blue Collar was on that Solid State album. Yep,
sure
sounds
enough. About right.
Ludacris. Track number 13, Light Blue Collar. Back before they changed their name to Norma Jean.
Yeah, and it's crazy. You can't find that album on streaming anywhere.
No. You can buy it off Amazon. I'm looking at it right now. But as far as like streaming it goes, see, that was a big thing back in the day. Again, kind of getting us back to there's so many options now, right? Like I was listening to my Discover Weekly on Spotify today, and I probably scrolled through like 4 or 5 bands that they were just whatever, they did their thing and they didn't really do anything great, tickled, my ears. And then like one song comes on and it's like, oh man, that's awesome. Let me follow those guys and see what they're doing. Back in the day, all we had were these samplers or your friends bootlegging mixtapes. So you can making the doo-doo jams so that you can listen to new bands.
Well, that was the thing. I remember that. And like, you guys at least had Christian bookstores. I grew up in I'm up in Canada, and I grew up in Quebec, which is a fairly secularized province now, and there just wasn't any Christian bookstores. So I was mail ordering everything, and it really got to a point where I basically went, oh, it's a Solid State album, I'm buying it. And so for those first few years, like if it was Solid State, I had it, and it was just
Heck yeah.
crazy the amount of different stuff. And then there was that one band that I won't name, and I was like, oh my gosh, how much money did I just spend on this thing?
I bought a few Solid State albums that I felt the same way. I was like, oh, there's that one song off the sampler. Everything else, not my favorite.
Yeah.
All right, Trey. I feel like I've been hogging a lot of the conversation here, man. You want to take over?
Yeah, so I've got a question that might be a little controversial, right? But okay, so in the Christian film industry, right, there's a massive divide in the quality of the product when you compare it to like the mainstream film industry, right? And so I want to know, since you guys run a Christian music review website, right? Like, do you see a divide like that in the Christian metal and hard rock genre versus like the mainstream metal and hard rock? I mean, you get what I'm saying? Because like, there's a lot of Christian films that you watch, and they're just like they're cheesy, or they're a little too on the nose with stuff, or just bad acting and stuff like that. Production quality is usually kind of low, and it seems kind of low budget or whatever. I want to know what if you guys think that that's something that exists, within the Christian versus mainstream or secular like metal genre.
I've been around the scene for quite a while. I mean, I really got into the Christian metal when I was 16, and I'm in my 40s now. In the early days, you had a couple bands that really stood out, but for a lot of it, it was really about being the Christian version of whatever metal band was out there. And that stuff was just terrible. Like, you could tell it was just nothing but a clone or a knockoff. And you're like, well, if the quality is going to be this bad, why don't I just go listen to the original? But I think with Solid State really putting money behind it, and bands like Zao, bands like Living Sacrifice, like those early metalcore bands, they were like really establishing themselves and doing things. Like, sure, they took their influences, but they were basically creating a whole new genre, and I think that changed things. There started to actually be money behind, the Christian bands. So, like, when Jeffrey's talking about the low quality of the deathcore bands, like, it doesn't mean that they weren't good bands. They just didn't have any money behind them. Yeah. So once once people figured out, oh, there's a market there, and I hate that it all comes down to marketing, but there was that huge Christian boom, and I think we still see that quality now because I don't know, any guy with a laptop, from my understanding, can put together a solid sounding album if they know what they're doing. So you don't necessarily have to have the crazy amount of budget that they used to back in the day. So I don't think we see as much of a divide. I mean, you're never going to get like a brand new band that's going to sound as good as Slipknot, for example. But, if we're just talking about getting noticed for that first time and putting out a quality first release, yeah, I think the Christian industry or the Christian metal scene can stand toe to toe.
I tend to agree. I know whenever a lot of these Christian labels that started pushing out a lot of these bands, there wasn't a ton of money behind it, so the production quality is what it is. But once that Christian metal started to really take off, you noticed, using War of Ages as an example, their first release was not good. The kick drum timing was off, like the production quality was low. And then, they put out Pride of the Wicked, which was better, but even then, if you fast forward another album or two, the production quality has gotten substantially better. Matter of fact, Face Down was kind of known for their first wave having really bad quality. And then their stuff got much better.
I just picked up their they put out a set. I don't know when it came out. I caught it on not through, anyways. I bought the set. It was their first 3 7-inches. They repressed them and put it out as a set. And I was listening to one of them the other day, and my wife actually walked in and went, "What is that? Why is it so bad? And why did you buy it?" He said, yeah.
So, but babe, this is that new Ninjaloot record.
Yeah, like anybody's gonna ever press one of our records, man.
Rest assured, if they do, it'll sound like that.
There you go.
Oh, dude, I don't know that you can go that low.
Oh, dang.
And I know I'm going to have some friends that are really going to be unhappy with me saying that, but
They were like, "Oh, come on, man. That's the good stuff."
yeah.
Well, I've got another question, and it's something we've hit on in a couple of our podcasts so far. But I guess since there's so many avenues, like there's more avenues than ever for bands that have all kinds of genres, all levels of experience, right? There's so many avenues for them to get their music out on platforms and streaming and digital downloads and all this kind of stuff. What do you think it will take for bands to quote unquote make it in the newer music industry, right? Because it's something that we struggle with, right? When we first got started was we did a couple of really crappy recordings, and our only avenue to get them out there was like a MySpace player, right? Because we could put a couple of songs like up at the top of the page, and then we had to sell physical copies of our CDs at whatever shows we played. And that was really the only way we could do things. Now we haven't played a show in a very, very, very long time, but we've put out a whole bunch of singles in 2020. You know what I'm saying? And they're streaming on every platform that you could want music to stream on. You know, they're on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, you know, everywhere. And so seeing that,
Bandcamp,
like that's,
we've got them everywhere.
there you go. But seeing that it's so easy for bands to just put their music out there, what do you guys think it'll take for bands to really make it, rather than just trying to get their music out?
It's crazy. I you know, it seems to be getting on you know, like Spotify or Apple Music playlists seems to be the thing now. But listening to some of the feedback that I've heard from some bands is like, I have no idea how you get noticed. An example was Face Down's Everything in Slow Motion release that came out not too long ago. It's musically a solid album. Like, it could easily get, you know, speaking in older speak, like radio airplay. But for some reason, not a single one of their Spotify playlists picked them up at all. And then a band like Fallstar dropped their stuff, which is great too. They got picked up by 2 or 3 different ones. So I honestly have no idea how anybody would get noticed at this point, because it seems completely and utterly arbitrary, unless, you know, we're talking like payola schemes like they used to have back in the day.
I'm gonna say I've been doing some, I won't say experimenting, but with the playlist, and there's services now. See, now everything's locked behind a paywall everywhere. So the avenue to get your music out these days is so much easier. Like you said before, anybody with a laptop can make a decent sounding product and put it out there. But nowadays, if you put it used to be, oh man, we got to have a label or someone with some know-how or some resources to hear our stuff in hopes that they'll pick it up, they'll distribute it. Well, now that guard is gone. The old guard's gone and the new guard's in. We can put it out anywhere and everywhere. But now there's so much. It's like the new guard is, well, let me be your curator. Let me be the way that we funnel the music in. And like you said, the Spotify playlist really seems to be the new hotness. That's the new obstacle to overcome. And so, you got all these guys in these various groups, and I'm sure you guys see them, but they come in the group and they're like, "Hey, we got this playlist. It's got X amount of followers on it. Submit your music, follow the playlist, and share the playlist, and then we'll maybe put you on there." And it's one of those things where, we had just put out a single. I'm like, I'll try that out, whatever. Didn't get on them. I'm like, wait a second. I'm listening to your playlist, and the bands you chose are not fantastic. They're not bad. They're just, like everybody else. I'm like, why? What is it about them? Why is it that you're not choosing, our song, but you chose those songs? Not saying that maybe they thought our song sucked. It's cool, whatever. But I just got curious about it. I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a playlist. I'm going to try to get a bunch of bands on it, get everyone to follow it. I created a playlist. It got 118. I think we got 118 followers on it right now. Now I'm getting all these like promoters and these people represent labels asking me to put bands on my playlist. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Like you have to get a little pool of people to listen to this thing, and then like you said before, that's kind of the new making it. That's the new way of getting it out there. Is get on those playlists, and you got to beg and barter. There's paid services where you can get on them. But I mean, even the curators, it's kind of gotten to be like a bit of a racket, not to speak ill of the whole setup, but it's like a lot of the curators that have these things will have labels. Like if you're screamo, which, I hate that term, but whatever, screamo, metal, hardcore, heavy, and then you pay the service to get a part of that. And then they're like, oh yeah, you didn't meet our criteria. Like, did you even listen to it?
So you pay and they'll still turn you down?
Oh yeah. There's all kinds of stuff like that out there.
Oh, wow.
It's like, yeah, you didn't meet the screamo metal breakdown criteria. And I'm over here like, did you listen to the song? Because that's literally all we
do. Wow. See, I think that's one of the things, like, labels still are important. I know for a while there was that movement away from labels and being able to do it yourself. And I think it's great for being able to do it yourself to get your demo out there, get maybe the first release or whatever. But unless you're one of the bigger bands, like, I'm not sure that anybody's really going to crowdfund you or follow you unless you made a name, like, say, through the touring and getting your name out there as much as possible. Like, until you've built that following, I really think that the label way is still probably the most sensible. But, I think we saw it with Demon Hunter when they put out Outlive. They weren't under contract with Solid State anymore. They funded that album themselves. And then they brought it to Solid State and said, hey, can you do all the label stuff, like the marketing, the getting our name out there, letting people know, do the distribution and stuff like that. I think that might be the way for a lot of these bands at this point, like, because they can do the recording themselves. They can actually bring a finished product that maybe will need a little bit of tweaking or whatever, but they can basically bring a finished product to a label. And then you don't run into those old issues with labels owning the music and, raking bands over the coal. Like, they can actually come and say, hey, we really just need that distribution. We need that marketing. And they can come up with a fairer, like, bargaining chip at this point.
Heck yeah.
And hey, if I had all of these answers, I wouldn't be sitting in my place. Oh, how do I want to say this? I'd be out there selling a buttload of music. Yes, you need to hit up Jeffrey over here and figure out how he does it. I have no idea how he finds the stuff that he finds. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and I was joking with him the other day. My budget can't take much more of him finding stuff.
I actually, I like, so during this whole coronavirus pandemic thing that's been going on, Bandcamp started doing they waived their fees on Friday so that the artists can get, you know what I'm saying, 100% of the proceeds towards their music.
Yeah.
And I regrettably don't use Bandcamp as much as I should. But I've listened to I actually listened to a new metal podcast where that's kind of their shtick. They go on there on Fridays and they're just like, all right, buy all the bands, buy everything. Because the bands get, 100% of the proceeds or whatever. And that's actually how I discovered the fact that Bandcamp was doing that. I'm like, oh man, that's really awesome. And there's just so much cool stuff on there. I like Bandcamp. We've had I actually put, 2013, I believe it was, it's kind of when we went on indefinite hiatus and we all had a bunch of kids and stuff. And 2013, I put a compilation album on Bandcamp, and it was, I don't know, 13, 15 songs just across a couple of our different EPs. You say you found that one on Monday? Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. The quality's pretty terrible on there. There you go. But yeah, that's but we put that on there as almost like a not so much like a going away thing, but it was like, here's just a handful of songs from the different EPs, because we released 3 EPs and then a 3-track demo. And that was kind of the inspiration of launching the project back up. It was like, hey, one thing we never did was complete a full-length album. So we put that Remember the Loot compilation up as just kind of like, here's some of our I don't want to say highlights, but just some of the more fun songs to play.
So let me flip it on you here. I got a question for you guys.
Sure.
We're talking about, getting your name out there and such. Why aren't you on some of the socials pushing some of your stuff? Like, until I saw, I don't remember his name, but the Ark of the Covenant guy that you had on.
Daniel?
Yeah, I had no idea that you guys existed. Like, I saw him post. I checked out the podcast, and then I was like, oh, they've got a band. Let's go check out the band. Being that we're fairly Christian metal heavy, like super into this stuff, like, why have we never heard of you? Come on, get out there, do something.
So, Trey and I have been doing this since 2006-ish. That's about when we launched the project. And we were hot and heavy on MySpace. Now, back then, Pure Volume, MySpace, and Reverb Nation were the only socials.
Mm-hmm.
And we sucked at those. So you can only imagine how that progressively carried on. But nah, man, like we were hot during MySpace. And so we would get on there and post, and we would, we had our songs on there or whatever. And then when Facebook came around, that's about the time we were late to Facebook too. We were almost like the old men, like, I ain't doing it. I don't know nothing about that book face. I ain't doing that. And then, so we jumped over, we started a Facebook. I think we had gotten upwards of like 1,300 followers was the most I think our page ever saw. And then we went dark in 2012. We stopped traveling, playing shows. We, finished out the dates that we had, committed to. And then 2013, we did a couple like reunion-esque things. We did like a fundraiser for my goddaughter who was diagnosed with leukemia. So we got the band back together for that. And we did some like rock collaboration projects. That's when I launched my rap rock project and all this stuff. And then outside of that, we put the stuff on Bandcamp and SoundCloud, and then we just disappeared. And then over the past few years, there's been times where we got back together and we're like, hey, we should really write an album. And, we started and then, had more kids and stopped, and started and had more kids and stopped, and things like that. And then very, very, very end of 2019, the original 3 of us, myself, Trey, and our original guitar player, we launched the project with, Justin. We got together with our current drummer, Luis, and we all went out to dinner. And we're like, hey, let's get together and write this album. So we got back on. We had to figure out how to get on our social media platforms. Like, we were locked out of them. I think one person had a login to a Facebook, and so we got in on that. We didn't even have a YouTube. So a few months back, I started as a YouTube. We had an Instagram, and then we got locked out of it completely. So our drummer started us a new Instagram, and it was kind of like, as we record music, we'll start posting a little more, get out there, and so we're learning the ropes. So, you said earlier you're not a big fan of all the social media platforms, dude. I freaking hate it. It's painful. It is a chore, for me, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but like, I have to, hey, go on the band's page and post something. And things have changed since we used to be on there. It used to be you posted something, your whole audience saw it.
Yeah.
And now it's like less than 10% of your audience sees it. So we launched a song last May, paid for a bunch of ads, targeted our actual audience that listens to us. I bet you 10% of them don't even know we've launched the project, just because of the nature of how it's set up now. We created our own Facebook group, so that people actually get the notifications when we post in there. So we have our 700 something followers on our page that's there. We have our, our little group or whatever. And then we have our YouTube. And so now it's kind of been like, let's try it. Let's try to get out there, try to get people to notice us. And not so much that we want to get back on the road or, ever strike some, imaginary record deal. But for us, it's Ninjaloot was always a ministry for us. And it was always a avenue to share our faith through heavy, aggressive music that we really enjoyed, to jump around and act foolish and play breakdowns.
And light your fire.
And light your farts on fire. Most importantly that, if I'm being honest. But but it was always just like, we're so passionate about doing this. And so now it's like, we have this thing. It's like, okay, how do we build momentum? We're asking this question as if we're asking on behalf of all the people who listen to the show. And we are. But also we ask ourselves the same question. Like, how do you build momentum in 2020, 2021? And so for us, it was like, let's do a podcast. Let's do a show. Let's talk about our experiences and our journeys. Let's bring on our old friends. We've got some other bands lined up that we're really excited about. Some people that we traveled with and toured with and did things with. And let's just start talking. And, we'll just use the podcast as almost the avenue to kind of keep constant content. And then as the songs are finished, we'll drop songs. Eventually we'll drop the album. And then we have a plan to push that pretty hard. But I don't know that I'm answering your question all that well, but I'm just kind of giving you this is what we're doing, And then like part of that strategy is reaching out to guys like you. It's like, and a lot of it is also self-serving. It's very much like, sure, we want to get people to listen to Ninjaloot. That's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
The ultimate goal would be to, present our faith and belief systems through our music, get you to listen to Ninjaloot. Boom. That's what we want you to do. But along the way, we're like, man, we really have fun podcasting. Let's do a podcast. Let's talk to people. All right, we're talking to bands. We're interviewing bands, Christian bands, non-Christian bands. And then we're like, whoa, wait, who's these Beyond the Grave guys? Oh, let's go see what they're doing. What they're doing is pretty interesting. Hey, you want to talk to them? Let's talk to those guys. Like something else I want to do is I want to get like some A&R dudes, some actual record label dudes, or guys who maybe don't work for a label anymore, but used to work for a label. And I want to talk about this stuff and see it from their lens. I kind of want to grab all these different perspectives, bigger bands, smaller bands, and just kind of have information out there, this avenue to talk and to discuss this thing that we're so passionate about. If it grows, that's awesome. If it doesn't, we're still having fun doing it. And that's the way we did Ninjaloot.
That's pretty much where, and I'm going to speak for Jeffrey a little bit, but I think that's pretty much where we're at too. Is this is something that we're passionate about? We're not making any money off of running the site. I personally basically just write reviews and it's just something I do for fun when I have a chance, when I'm not working or spending time with my kid. And we've kind of hit that point too. Like, we've seen Jeffrey posted some of the stats from last year, and we've seen a fair amount of growth. And we're now asking ourselves, like, how do we push this a little further to get, get that much more notice? How do we, really turn this? How do we get people to tune in to all of this music, and, like you were saying, get people to see Christ? You know, ultimately, that's when you're asking earlier, how do we pick and choose bands, or what gives us notice? And Jeffrey said, like, it's about the faith thing. And we purposely, I'm not trying to crap on any other website, but I've seen some of the older Christian websites where most of the reviews don't even touch on lyrics anymore. That's super important to us. That's, you know the key to everything that we're covering. And ultimately, the more, and I don't necessarily think we care all that much about success for ourselves, but we really want to bring that notice to these bands that are doing this stuff, so that they can get the success and get the notice. And like you were saying about the social media stuff, it's crazy. Like, I put out one or two posts, just so that I'm doing something to help Jeffrey out a little bit. And he had to message me a couple of days, or maybe the day after, and he's like, yeah, if you want people to notice, you're going to have to join all these different groups and post it there. And that's crazy to me. Like, the algorithms, like you're saying, my posts got no notice. Like, I don't think anybody commented on them. Jeffrey, who hustles like crazy and gets our stuff out there everywhere, his get all kinds of notice. I'm just like, man, I don't know if I have that in me to do that.
It's definitely a gift.
Well, I know, like, for my part, I hate to use this term because it's kind of it's just a strange term to me, but like, I think for anybody, um, bands or whatever, but like, I'm gonna say especially like Christian ministries. You know what I'm saying? Like one of the things that I see um, people doing that allows them to have traction in the larger, social media realm, or even just cultural realm or whatever, is that they're not just a website, or they're not just a band, or they're not just um, a resource. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're content creators. And so nearly everybody that I follow on social media, um, ministries, bands, like whatever you want to have, like, they put into multiple streams, right? Like, they'll have YouTube channels, they'll have an Instagram, they'll have their Facebook stuff, they'll have a website that's got all of that same content on it, but then it's also diversified. You know what I'm saying? They'll have audio files, they'll have all kind of stuff. And for me, it's been kind of daunting to try and think about, like, how to tackle that. You know what I'm saying? Because before, it was like, let's just write some music and hope that some people buy it or download it or whatever. And like, now it's like, well, you're telling me that, or the industry at large is telling me that in order for our band to succeed, especially if we want to make it a ministry, or want to make it where we're like um, getting our message out there and stuff, like, we're going to have to make YouTube videos. We're going to have to post, pictures and all kinds of content all over all the social medias and like all this stuff. And it's been difficult for me to even think about how to do that, because right now, like, I mean, Darrell runs the socials for the most part. Um, and, I think at first we thought if we post a couple of funny memes in our group, that like, oh, that'll get traction because we all like looking at stupid memes or whatever. And it's like, well, no, that actually doesn't do anything. And then Lord forbid if all you do is like just type an update on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Just a status update. Like, nobody's going to see that, because there's no graphic content, there's no extra comments, there's no, you know what I'm saying? And like, trying to learn all that stuff and then trying to put it into practice, like, it's hard for me to even know, like, what kind of work am I going to have to put into it? I mean, because yeah, I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife. I've got my church that I minister at and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, man, I don't even know if I got time to even like be trying to do YouTube videos and, Facebook Live videos and creating memes and taking pictures and doing all this kind of stuff,
Yeah, see, that's what I have Jeffrey for. Yeah, it's, man, I can't wrap my head around just how much you guys have to do to get it out there.
It's a lot, man. And like I said, like, I don't know, I feel like it's so crazy because, like, we're in our mid 30s and it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like we're complaining, but it's just one of those things to where social media, it doesn't come natural to me. Like, I'm not like, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing over here. Like, and when we were playing music, it was like, oh, bro, people are going to go to shows. We'll have new people every single night. So, like, our attack back then was just like play more shows. And it worked, and then it's crazy to see this new way of doing things now. It's like, just to let people know that you're alive again. It's like, okay, now I've got to pay for this ad. I got to post on this social. Oh, wait, you know what? Most everybody's done moved off of Facebook now into Instagram. Now we got to start doing Instagram videos. What's the story again? How do you Instagram live? Oh, wait, everyone's not moved over to Snapchat. What is a Snapchat? Like, what do you do on a chat? And then it's like, oh, dang, TikTok is the thing now. What is it? What do you TikTok? Oh, that's kind of like Vine, right? And then I guess for us, it was a very cognizant, just decision. It's like, you know what? We know Facebook, we know YouTube. We're going to stick with those and just hope for the best.
Yeah. Man, I remember when Snapchat first came out, a buddy of mine convinced me I needed to download it. I needed to have this thing. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever, I'll try it. All I ended up with was pictures of his feet for like a week. I'm like, you're just trolling me and I'm done with this.
So, yeah, it happens. And then so like so like I said, to get back to your answer, to get back to your question, I mean, like, we are doing, a handful of things to try to get noticed on social media. But I want to be very clear about this. I'm not going to do anything and Trey's not going to do anything if we're not like into it, So like a bunch of like random Facebook Live videos of us just mumbling on just so that it's there. It's not going to happen. Like I do memes because they're fun and they're funny. And so if you go to the Ninjaloot Facebook page, there's a lot of memes on there and there will continue to be more memes. I enjoy doing that. At its core, we love writing the music. So the music is going to be, the big thing. Podcasting, Trey and I love podcasting. He's got a theology podcast. I've got a video game podcast. I do a comic book show. So like we've got other things that we dabble in. And so that also eats up a ton of our time. But so like we're going to stick to what we enjoy.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things for me is I'm also not going to do something that takes away from my family, because one of the big problems I had when we did this before was we traveled a lot. We played a lot of shows. Sometimes we played 2 shows a night. We were all active in our churches, and we worked full time, and then we hit the road on the nights off. And like Trey's wife and my wife, they were pregnant at the same time. They traveled with us. They toured with us. They did stretches with us. Where they slept on gym floors, pregnant. And so we did. We've slept in vans. Like we've done all the typical, stuff. We've toured up and down the coast to the Midwest. We've gone we've played Cornerstone. So we've done a lot of cool stuff, so now we've done the hard stuff, and we never got that big break, or we didn't hit any big, huge wave of success. So now Ninjaloot is fun. We're going to do shows. Podcast shows, not like live shows. And we're going to do music, and then, hopefully people will see what's going on and be like, oh man, we want to be a part of that. Trey, you got any more questions for us?
Yeah, actually, I've got one more question. I don't think we actually sent this question in to you guys, so I apologize for that. I don't think it's not going to be like a difficult question to answer or whatever.
he's like abort.
No,
Can't
this
handle
isn't
it.
a dangerous question. At least it shouldn't be. But I guess seeing that kind of what you guys are aiming to do in supporting, these Christian bands and stuff like that. If you, and I do want to answer from each of you, but if you just had 30 seconds, a minute to explain what your goal is behind running the website that you guys do, I'd just love to get your thoughts, man, because you both sound really passionate about the faith aspect of it that you're trying to push. And so I just want to get both of y'all's thoughts, man. Just 30 seconds, a minute, minute and a half, whatever. Just what are your goals in running the website that you guys run?
I mean, this has been Jeffrey's baby from the start, and I kind of jumped in later on. But for me, I really was just looking for something to do to keep my brain going. Like I went to seminary, and things didn't work out in doing pastoring and stuff, and now I work a regular job, but I don't feel like my brain I was using it for much of anything. And so I was looking for an outlet, and I saw Jeffrey post saying, "Hey, I'm looking for reviewers." I'm like, well, I used to be good at writing papers, so I can jump in and do that. Part of it for me is just the love of music. Like I try and have music on all the time, but the faith thing. I mean, when I became a Christian at 16, it was a huge thing to just jump into all of that, have it be a part of the entirety of my life. And since music was such a big thing, it just made sense that I was going to search that stuff out. And when you really think about it, like, what's one of the best ways to reach out to people? It's through music. I mean, everybody loves music. I mean, there are crazy people out there that don't, and I don't understand them, but so for us, like what I was saying earlier, is it was really just, we want to find those bands and really bring them out there as much as we possibly can. And, with that in mind, like, I won't write a negative review. If, a band requests that we cover them, or we find one that we want to cover, like, I'm not kidding. Jeffrey finds stuff, like, I can't even figure out how he comes up with the stuff that he comes up with. But he'll put in our group chat, who likes this? Or he's actually kind of figured out what all of us like. And he's just like, hey, I think you're going to like this one. You want to do the review? And he's usually spot on. But, we're diverse enough that we don't have to worry about doing the negative reviews. And that's a huge thing just in our culture at this point, too, where I don't want to be a part of putting anything negative out there anymore. Like, there's just no purpose. I want to build things up, and I want to, like, be positive and happy and share the thing that I'm passionate about. Just like you guys were talking about when you do the different podcasts, because you're passionate about each of those things. So, I want to share that. And I mean, one of the fun things is just like, hey, Jeffrey hooks me up with a new band that I love. I've got 2 or 3 guys on Facebook that instantly I'm like, oh, you guys are going to love this one, and I'm passing it on to them. So it's just, the reviews are a way of doing that on a bigger scale.
That's what's up. So I guess to kind of start to land the plane and get us to, to come to a close, there's 2 questions I have for you guys, and I want answers from both of you. First off, what would be your favorite band? Now, I know that's very subjective because I can change from time to time, but favorite band?
Beloved.
Like U.S. Beloved or the other Beloved?
I'm going to pretend that you didn't ask that.
So were you signed up to go to the show, to go to Furnace Fest and watch them?
Oh, I wish. Apparently I don't wish anymore, but no, there was no way I would make it down there for that. But yeah, I saw that lineup, dude. With Honor was coming back, Beloved was coming back. Like
It was
Everyone's
everybody.
coming back.
Everybody.
you could have just done a checklist of all of the bands that I've loved over the years, and they were pretty much all there. Like,
Yep.
it was the most ridiculous lineup I've ever seen.
Did you ever get to see them live?
Beloved, I did just after they signed to Tooth and Nail, or
Okay.
to Solid State or whatever. Yeah, it was Cornerstone of 2002. So there was a huge boom of stuff that year that I got to see. Like I got to see Norma Jean when Josh was still in the band. I got to see Under Oath when Dallas was still in the band. Beloved just got signed. Dead Poetic just got signed. It was a ridiculous year.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got to see a lot of those guys. I actually, one of the things I shared, I guess, in the first episode was we got to play a show with the Chariot. We opened for the Chariot and Flyleaf the same day. And I got to hang out with Josh Scoggins on the side of the stage while watching Flyleaf, while watching Lacey out there doing her thing and watching the guys jump up and down their little skate ramps. And
that's a crazy pairing of bands. The Chariot.
Yeah, it was Ninjaloot, Chariot, and Flyleaf. So, and yeah, so me and Josh got to talk about like what it's like to be married and travel and be on the road. You know what I'm saying? Like while watching Flyleaf, it was one of the coolest experiences for sure. So he's such a cool dude, man. Like it's actually funny. We were loading our gear on stage. And we were loading up for sound check, and the guys from the Chariot had just pulled up, and we had this breakdown. As a matter of fact, the opening music for this podcast is an excerpt from one of our songs called "Everybody's Breakdown," and it's kind of a silly song we wrote. Like it's all about like one-liners from really negative things people had said to us as we were starting our band.
Okay.
And so like, but what we did was I was like, oh man, Josh, it'd be really awesome if you got up there during the breakdown, it's a series of breakdowns. So at any point in time, and just freestyle, just screamed and said whatever you wanted. And like, he's one of those like energy type guys. He was like, I don't know, man. Like he goes, if I'm feeling it, I'll do it, you know, but I got to hear it and I got to feel it, you know? I was like, cool. You know, I didn't expect him to do it, but I really wanted to take that opportunity to ask.
Yeah.
But there was a rap artist that opened up that day as well. They performed. There was a couple different rap artists that performed earlier in the festival. So I was like, hey, man, we're doing this breakdown. You should come out there and freestyle. And he did. And it was awesome. It actually became a thing that we did anytime we were in town together. But, man, we were so close. Basically what I'm getting at is we almost shared a actual set with the Chariot. So close yet so far. And I guess, okay, the last question, final question tonight. We've been asking you guys a ton of questions. Appreciate you so much for answering these questions and being on the show. But I guess because you guys do reviews and you have a website based around doing reviews, I got to know what is the best or most fun, most enjoyable review you've done?
One of the most fun things is when a band hits us up after we've done a review and they're just like, man, we really appreciated that. Or the Your Hands Write History guys hit me up and they're just like, man, you nailed all of our lyrical themes. And that was a huge thing to my ego where I was just like, oh, awesome. I'm not a complete idiot.
That's good to know. So, I did reviews for a video game website a few years back.
Mm.
And I didn't do a ton of them, and I'm not a great writer. So, you know, there's that. But one of the things I tend to like make this list in my mind. It's like, oh, here's a couple things I want to do in my life. So I'm going to go figure out how to do them. And I don't have to do them to this large, grand scale. But like, I wanted to play music in a band. So did the band. Like, cool. I wanted to do a podcast, start a podcast. I wanted to do video game reviews, hooked up with a website, did reviews. you know, and that's kind of how I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing. Like right now, I'm working on a project. I want my music in a video game. So I sought out some indie devs that needed some music, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. And so I was writing video game reviews. One of the things that I did not want to do, and I really appreciate that you guys have said this about your site, is that you just didn't want to add to the cesspool of negativity that's already out there. So what I tried to do with my reviews was just to highlight the things that were good, you know, not necessarily to dodge the things that were bad, but if something didn't click, I'd be like, hey, you know, this didn't work for me. But X, Y, and Z over here was really good here, you know, and kind of almost to highlight the strong points. So, and I do that on our video game show as well when I talk about games and stuff like that, because there's no shortage of people out there crapping on everything that exists. So we don't need more people like that. But what we do need are people who can identify things that are positive and then bring that to the light. So,
and that's definitely for sure been our focus. And, you know, we personally, when I write the review, I like to pick the one thing that I'm like, hey, maybe this could be worked on. But at the same time, I also do it with the knowledge that, you know, you were talking earlier about pinch harmonics, and I have no idea what you're talking about. You know, I know what I like. I've picked up from all various podcasts that I listened to, you know, different terms for things that I appear to be using in the right way. But, I mean, if we're going to break down into like full on reviews of bands, then I'm completely out of my depth. So, yeah, beyond the fact that I want to be completely positive about these things, like I'm just not qualified to really criticize it, you know, a band's musical skills, unless, you know, there's some obvious things. But
yeah. Well, guys, is there anything else that you guys want to maybe push or promote, or maybe you've got some upcoming might want to have people focus on?
There's an upcoming interview with Pantocrator I'm looking forward to. And
Tantric?
Pantocrator. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. What about you, Jeremy?
No, I can't really. I don't know. I don't have anything in particular to promote. Just come check out our site. Come see what we're about. You know, you'll find just about everything. Like I've done some indie rock reviews. We've got, you name pretty much any kind of extreme metal, it's on there. We've got a reviewer for it. Yeah. And just, I was thinking about this the other day. I'll throw out an interesting fact about our review team. We are one of the most eclectic groups of guys. Jeffrey here is from Ghana. I'm from Canada. We've got a guy from the Netherlands, another one from Australia. And hey, Jeffrey, where's Gabriel from?
He's from, I think, Venezuela.
Somewhere down in South America. I looked it up the other day and I completely have gapped on it. But yeah, so, you know, come check out our site. You're going to get a bit of everything from us. We cover the gamut.
Heck yeah, awesome. Well, if you're listening to this podcast, the name or the actual website of theirs is beyondthegravemusic.com. You can find them on Facebook. I'm sure you guys have the other socials as well, like Instagram, YouTube, things like that, or no?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter. I even joined Parler, like really post name.
Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll put all of the links to your website in the show notes. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks for having
Trey,
me.
thank you for coming on here, man, and us getting together and talking about something we're all passionate about. I appreciate you guys. I look forward to checking out some more of your stuff. And maybe, just maybe one day, we will get reviewed on Beyond the Grave.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. It's been awesome talking with you guys.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And keep doing what you're doing, man, because it's really good to have stuff like that out there.